Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan. Welcome to our show. Whether you're watching this live, even though it's a pre-record, or if you're listening to it as a podcast, we're really happy that you wanted to be in our audience and that you joined the show. For those of you who watch the show a lot, you may have noticed that our intro is much shorter, and there's a very good reason for that. WLFEDB.com is no longer broadcasting on 3 channels. We're only broadcasting on one main channel. So all the other channels, the paranormal channel, the LGBTQ channel, and the Variety Unlimited, which we always broadcast on, have now all joined in their one big channel.
Right.
And remember, this is pre-recorded. You can go ahead and make comments and ask questions, and
you contact our guest, and also don't forget the book giveaway, because there will be a book giveaway.
So whether you're listening to the live pre-recorded or if you're listening to the podcast, go ahead, give it a shot. You never know.
That's right. And since this is pre-recorded, we don't know who the guest is going to be on Voice of Indie podcast immediately following this broadcast. Being Weeks and Gary G's host it. And it's every Wednesday night right here where, no, not right here. At the end of this show, what am I talking about? At the end of this show, we have a little commercial that will tell you exactly how to get over to the Voice of Indie podcast and participate in that and get to know their authors as well. Next Saturday, his episode Rewind again, and it's James Welpley. Sorry, James.
Yeah, those were good books.
Tenafree and Dancing in the Trap author, and that was a real good episode. Want to make sure everybody knows about Book World: The Great Escape podcast every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central Time in the U.S., and that's all you have to do is go to on YouTube, go to C.J. Peterson, and you'll find that channel. Next Wednesday, we'll have multi-award winning author of historical fiction and action adventure novels, Mr. Ron Yates. And so that should be that'll be live, by the way. And so tune in for that one. And we'll see you then live there.
Yeah. Now, don't forget to go to our YouTube channel, Meet the Author Podcast, and like, subscribe, and comment. Definitely. And of course, our guest today would like you to do the same thing with his YouTube channel.
That's right. Now, our guest tonight is a return, and we're pleased to have him back again.
And let you know about his new books that he has written.
A.G. FLITCHER, why don't we bring him on in?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, welcome to the show.
I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. How have you been since last you were on?
A lot has happened since last time. I mean, I didn't think that by the time I saw you guys again that I'd have 2 new books to wrap up the whole series. Usually it's 1 book a year, but with the last book I wrote for the series, Boone and Jack, I was in such a good headspace to, drive it home that I ended up writing way more than I usually do on a weekly basis, which is usually 4,000 words. And I ended up, for the last month of writing 9,000 words a week. Because I was like, I know how scared I am about moving on from this series. So while I'm still in the heat of the moment, I may as well, strike while it's hot. And then once the story is done and I've refined it, then I can just, put it behind me and start new and exciting things after.
Are you going to be writing more books?
Yeah. I've already talked about this with some other podcasters. I am working on a serial killer novel.
Ooh.
Yeah, and that's going to be I'm purposely making it challenging for myself because in my reading that I'm doing now for I guess getting a feel for crime novels, I've noticed that it can be a bit formulaic, and I don't want it to be that way. I want this book to really stand out, which will be entitled Black Rose Cocoon.
Good.
So what I'm doing, and this is very important to me for the readers to understand, is that yes, it revolves around a female serial killer, but I am not going from her perspective. I'm going from the others that are affected by her actions. So that means I'm doing a 4 character rotation. So, for example, the chapter titles would be like chapter 1, character name, and then the next one, and then the next one, and it just rotates. That way, the the reader will get a feel not just for the worlds that surrounds this killer, but also the people involved in it. Because to me, when you watch true crime documentaries, and specifically on serial killers, the most interesting part is the lasting effect that murder from one person uh, implores on society and for the victims' family members and friends. So I wanted to focus more on that, on how the repercussions of this person's actions, especially someone who is deemed a monster,
Yeah.
can really affect them. So, namely, in terms of profession and what kind of character I'm focusing on, I'm doing a detective, possibly a journalist or a radio host, a doorman, and a victim family member. That way, I'm showing different people connected to this killer while having that as a through line where she may not be present in every scene, but in some way, shape, or form, she has an effect. So when I interviewed criminology professors, they were saying how it's not easy to actually figure out, like right off the bat, who a serial killer is, because usually the killings are random. So there's no telling who the person is and what pattern there is until it becomes so obvious and such a big body count that it kind of picks up. It kind of starts to make more sense. So that's kind of what I'm doing. But also, and this is the more interesting part to me, is I'm not focusing on the development of this character arc or negative character arc. I'm also focusing on how these 4 characters will be driven to madness, because they'll be driven to madness based on either their profession or their life in general. So the detective might be driven insane by just uncovering everything about this killer and how they can be stopped. And the doorman could just be, the silent person that has more information than most people because he's neutral. So it's obviously going to take some time because the way I approach storytelling, especially if I know I only have one shot to make it memorable, is to really make sure that it is memorable. So that means the characters are gripping and they feel real, and more importantly, the world building feels even more alive and visceral. Because I can't just have a freaking Gotham City that has a grunginess to it. That's expected. There has to be, how can I put it? Not too much focus on the background, but the background has to feel lively. So, for example, I was just kind of fiddling with this a couple of days ago. Um, the first paragraph of chapter 1 is literally just the detective in bed at like 3 a.m. and there's a homeless couple in a nearby alleyway fighting about something. And even though the population of homelessness is high, that one particular detail shows an introduction to the dirtiness, the visceral energy of the city, but only in that particular area. So that allows me a small introduction to the richness of this world that I'm going to expand, not just in this story, but others as well.
Let me ask you this then. When you're writing as these characters, is it going to be a first person narrative, or is it going to be third person or second person?
It's going to be omniscient, because
Omniscient third person.
because that way I'm distancing myself from getting too close and personal to any character. If I were to do first person through the serial killer, then it makes that person, that character, human. I don't want to humanize a monster.
No, I meant, were you going to be first person as the characters, the detective and the doorman?
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. Are they going to be pulling their own, or is it going to be third person omniscient, knowing what's going on all the time? For those of you who don't know what third person omniscient is, it means that the narrator sees everything and knows everything that's happening.
Yeah, I'll be doing that, but what I'll be doing to fit the narrative voice for each character, the tone will shift in a way that it matches with that person's energy and their own space, I guess, their environment. So the radio host or podcast host, depending on the time setting that I'm doing, she will have more of a loud personality and very not so, self-aware, because I've only written self-aware characters and some that are kind of, in their head a bit too much, but they've always felt genuine. I want to create characters that don't feel too genuine, because, not every person in the world has a good sense of awareness. And some people are content with who they are, regardless of whatever issues they haven't tackled, or whether it's personal or in their past. So this will kind of be the character arc for this this girl in particular, where she'll have a loud and proud energy, but she won't really be aware of how she's being perceived by others. She just loves the way she is. But it's just going to be interesting. So we'll see how it goes.
Sorry about that, people. There is a delivery outside. So editorial comments from our dogs. All right. So what made you decide to go from what you were writing to doing this type of a series? And, I'm just wondering, were you trying to stretch yourself and stretch your voice?
Well, that's an interesting question, because the idea of someone having an impulse they can't control, that's just part of them, and on top of that, having possible repressed trauma that they just blocked out completely, and it just made them worse and worse as a person. It was a good polar opposite exercise and opportunity for me to counterbalance everything that I've done for Boone and Jacques, because Boone and Jacques was all about being self-aware and working through your own darkness and finding the light, and not just being self-reliant, but relying on friendship and love, as opposed to just parents and peers, especially if you don't have that in your life, and that you're trying to be as resourceful as possible to be more wholesome and true to yourself. It's very philosophical, very emotional, very real and raw, in a beautiful way. But I need to show, not just to myself, but to other people, that there are people out there that are so damaged and broken that it would be too much work for other people to be around them. There are people that they've had so much trauma in their life that they become extremely bitter and violent. And it's not that they're a bad person, it's that they're so far gone and so ahead in life comparatively to how long ago their trauma was, that it's either too late or they just aren't willing to do the work or don't even think they need to because they're just happy with, not happy, they're content with the way their life has gone, or they don't see any kind of opportunity to correct that. So yes, you can't really therapize someone who has a killer instinct and is just in their blood, but you can understand how that can affect others and how it can destroy not just others but themselves at the same time. And that, there are cases out there, infamous killers, that when they see that they can't hide from their actions and they've been incarcerated or they're on death row, they just confess to everything. They're like, you know what? Yeah, I'm a killer. What do you want from me? Give me whatever consequence I have for the way I've gone about my life, and whatever excuse I have for the impulse that I have, please, I understand. Like when I was watching interviews with like Jeffrey Dahmer, Eileen Wuornos, John Wayne Gacy, it's almost like they know it's their identity, that the actions they've committed, whatever guilt they have or not, no remorse, if is usually the case, they have accepted that. Before, they were just going by impulse, going by whatever their instincts tells them to do. And when I would watch documentaries talking about how some people have a part of their brain that's like 16% smaller than most people, which has what's the term? I think for forgiveness or remorse. They say that is a possible reason why killers are like that, but not every killer has a defect. It's not really something you can justify or explain scientifically or personally. And so it just really fascinated me. And also, what fascinates me even more is the fascination of killers. I mean, you go on Netflix, there's like a whole page, a whole row of true crime documentaries, not just for killers, but all kinds of crimes.
That's right.
There's obviously something about those who are sane that find something fascinating about that. Maybe it's just the whole what drives someone to do that, and why there's so many cases, and that's publicly speaking. Like there's probably even more cases that haven't been publicized.
Right.
And I wanted to really explore that just in one book, just so I can understand how can I exemplify something memorable. Yes, it's fiction, but still, that can really encapsulate not just that area of entertainment, but of reality. It's just crazy to me how many people come up to me saying, "Oh, did you watch this documentary series about this plane disappearing and the Jeffrey Dahmer bio series?" And what all of those kind of miss a little bit is the brutality of how family members are affected, because usually it's either young victims or elderly, and it's just like, how can I do that? How can I perfectly enwrap all of that into one book? So that's why I'm going to take my time with this book and really encapsulate the world as it is affected by one person.
It's interesting because we have three of our daughters. We have 5 daughters and one son, but 3 of our daughters are very much into true crime. But they are into true crime because often true crime there are a lot of unsolved cases, right? You don't know who the killer is. And they want to be part of the solution. They want to help figure it out.
Yeah.
So I think some people do come at it from that point, of like, this is a terrible thing. How can we help solve it?
Right.
Like unsolved mysteries, it always has shows how the family is feeling, and you always feel great pathos, and you want to do whatever you can to help those people get some kind of relief. But having a female killer, you mentioned Eileen Warhorse, and she was, it's very unusual. I think that was a good subject to pick.
Yeah.
It's unusual to have a female serial killer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to be rude, but I really want to show you quickly a book I got that actually explores the psychology of female serial killers.
Awesome. We need to take a commercial break.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll sit tight.
Well, you can go get the book, and we'll be right back.
Back in 3 minutes.
Yep.
I'm so excited.
Word from our sponsor.
Mystery hovers in the Magnolia Bluff Public Library. It has nothing to do with the hundreds of suspense novels on its shelves. Caroline McCluskey is the librarian. She finds a crimson hat and a black and white poodle puppy. They belong to Esther Williams. Esther is missing. The police can't find her. Neither can the FBI. Esther's only hope is a ring of 3 women investigators who form the Round Table. The Round Table has already solved one mystery in town, but this time, a woman's life is at stake. The Doggone Diamond Dilemma is now available on Amazon.
They thought the siren was dead. In the novel Siren Song by author George Dismukes, James Harmon shot her twice. Several people saw her dead body sinking slowly into the abyss. But now, in Siren Song 2, evidence suggests that she may still be alive.
She killed that boatload of people. It was her! And she's just getting started!
Angie, that's impossible.
The cold chill up my spine tells me it's not impossible. We've got to start all over again. And this time, do it right.
Siren Song 2. The story continues. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites. Get your copy today.
It's a murder scene. Like many others, except the prime suspect is a beautiful woman from Detective Ray Schiller's past. Ray is determined to help her, but at what cost? Targeting him for his interference, the killer threatens all Ray holds dear. He's given terms and a deadline he can't possibly meet. Run, Ray, run. Watch the past come back with a vengeance in Targeted. Don't miss a second. Order now.
And we're back.
Yeah, you can order right now.
Yes, you wanted to show us a book.
Yeah. So, Just as Deadly: The Psychology of a Female Serial Killer. I actually emailed the author, who is a university professor, who wrote this, and I asked her a few questions. I haven't had a chance to look at them, but I thought it was a good idea to have this, because even just looking at the table of contents, it's like basically all case studies. I hope you can read that.
Yeah.
It's case studies, and it's a good idea, because the thing about male killers, at least what a criminology professor explained to me, is that there's no rhyme or reason for why they kill. It's just an impulse they have, and that's why the pattern and the MO is so hard to distinguish. But a female serial killer has what's called a opportunist mentality. So that means that there is some kind of emotional, not reasoning, but foundation for why they do it. So famously or infamously, Eileen Wuornos, her target usually, based on body count, was middle-aged white men, and that goes back to her father issues. And so that made me think about that. But more specifically, what can I exemplify for a female killer that wouldn't be seen as typical? Usually, or at least what was explained to me, is that things like rape are a common tool for control. And I don't want to do that because, first off, it's really hard to pull that off without making a reader squeamish. And two, it is expected, because a killer would want to always have dominance and control. And I want to exemplify that in a more psychological way as opposed to using sex or forced sex, because that's a very intimate thing. And I'm not looking for physical intimacy. I'm looking for psychological intimacy that could be used as a weapon. I mean, here they're talking about psychopathy as a disorder, and they're saying things like psychopathic traits include lying, manipulation, exploitation, callous disregard for the welfare of others, lack of remorse, and empathy deficits. So that's why it's interesting to me to read this kind of stuff. Okay. And to really explore not just a psycho, but how a psycho can be caught and how they're not caught. So, for example, in book 4 of Boone and Jacques, I do kind of tease that one of the characters who is in a position of power was once a serial killer and was actually part of the female killer murder club. And I explore that even more in book 5, where she is possessed by a dark being, not that one, but someone else. Well,
the other one looks pretty dark.
yeah. So the dark being in Sahon that latches itself to a character I won't name. You'll have to read the book. I'll say that she's a woman. Her impulse to kill, which was semi-dormant for a long time, is heightened and really awakened. So I'll say the name of the magical character, Dakrir, who is a sea king on a sister planet called Theranosita. And Sahon is a cosmic energy / bridge between our Earth and the sister planet Theranosita. And what's happening in book 5 is that he is basically breaking as a bridge and is gravitating towards Earth and latching itself back to part of its cosmic energy / consciousness that was separated from him. It's really complicated. You'll have to read the book. But anyway, I used book 4 and 5 as my warm-up to really see how I can demonstrate a killer, and also the mysteriousness of it and the tension.
For those that may not have seen our last episode with you, can you kind of give us a little synopsis of the Saddleton series, starting at the beginning?
Sure.
Let me show the book covers.
Yeah.
First,
I'll do it one by one.
Saddleton's Secret, Boone and Jacques. Okay. Then we have the Brothers Odyssey. Then we have Saddleton Haunting. Okay. Those are the first 3. And then we have Citrus Moonlight and Sahon, which he just spoke about briefly, each one of those. Yep. Maybe bring everybody through the first 3 books and remind them what those books are about.
Yeah. Okay. So for those who are watching, This is the first one, Boone and Jack, Saddleton's Secret. Really, it was my first attempt to see if I can pull off a combination of Stephen King sort of environment and atmosphere with the magic energy of Harry Potter. So the overall plot of book one is two kids, Boone and Jack, around the age of 10, have come upon magical history that slowly unravels throughout the story, getting them closer to the truth of how Saddleton became a real place. Because before Saddleton, there was actually a whole different Earth. Because essentially, I created my own Big Bang theory, where in the world of Saddleton, that is the new era of Earth, where all of the territories basically became Pangea. I don't know if you guys know about that, where everything's together. So something like I did something similar to that, where it's kind of like the Ecuador, where it's a loop like this around the Earth, where all the lands kind of merged and shifted, and there's like islands that broke apart. But we don't get to see any of that, unfortunately. We're just focused on Saddleton. So you get to see magical kings and their creatures. The adults in that world are self-obsessed and are after their own, desires. And meanwhile, the children are in the middle of that and trying to, follow their curiosity and learn about themselves, and are being pulled here and there, and then eventually shoved out of town through time and space, which leads to book two.
Okay, book two is the Brothers Odyssey.
Yeah. So in book two, without me even realizing it, they're transported to a part of Theranosita, the sister planet, where there is this wasteland that belongs to, or is in power of, King Reeve, one of the magical kings, who is the darker brother of the Talbot family. And King Estev, which I think they kind of see a little bit, is the light king, the good brother that was absorbed by light magic. They're both kind of fighting each other as they're trying to utilize Boone and Jack as what I would say human catalyst to further their own game plan for what they're trying to do with Earth. And that's really what's happening throughout the series, is these kings, and even Sahon as a consciousness, is trying to use these two as some kind of means to an end to bring to life what they envisioned on their planet that is dying. So, of course, Boone and Jack have no idea what's going on that planet. But that's why there's this constant chaos, is that since the beginning, Sahon was unraveling and breaking as a bridge. He still had a consciousness and still had power, but because he fed a lot of energy between both planets as a bridge before he was tainted, how can I put it? The yin and yang of him was having trouble maintaining stability. So when we get to book three, that's when we know that the bridge is really starting to struggle to maintain integrity, because things like this are being created through undead energy, I guess. And he's trying to rectify and just, wrap that up. So in book four, we don't really get to see that because it's been kind of dormant. So we focus on the lives of Boone and Jack as adults. And
so that brings up a question. In Saddleton's Secret, they're about 10, correct?
Yes. Yep.
And then in the Brothers Odyssey, they're did you say they were 10 and 11 or something like that? Or are they
something like that, because Jacques came later into Saddleton.
And then the Brothers Odyssey, about how old are they in the Brothers Odyssey, which is book 2?
13.
And then in Saddleton Haunting, which is book 3, just to refresh everybody's memory, how old would they be there?
15, 16 until I show a little teaser of book 4, which
and
is
then book 4 is what you were just speaking of.
Yep.
Citrus Moonlight, and here we see them as young adults.
About 30 something.
All right.
Yeah, I just jumped ahead to adulthood because the first 3 books was to me a summary of their childhood, and I wanted to move. I wanted to move past that. So book 4 is their 30s, and then book 5 is 30 to 40.
Okay, and that's Sahon.
Yes. Well, a version of him, because
no, I meant the name of the book.
Yeah, well, but that is him though. That's his. I call it his beacon.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's creepy.
He's meant to be creepy, and
good job.
Yeah, I actually was really struggling with how to picture him and what exactly is he, in terms of his goals for Boone and Jack. Like, is he a good guy, a bad guy? He's not either, and he's not trying to ruin their life or anything, but he doesn't have, how can I put it, he's not emotionally connected to them really, but like a villain. So really he sees them as an opportunity for him to be whole and to, I guess, be part of Earth as a wholesome entity and energy. Basically, he's trying to replace Earth's core with himself as a cosmic consciousness. So this humanoid form you see in the cover, that's not really him. That's just how he manifests himself physically to go and correct whatever he has to correct. So when he is introduced to Boone and Jack, they're only seeing a fragment of who he is. And in fact, that's basically the strength of his consciousness that goes from a humanoid form to a red crow. So it's I essentially created my mishmash of Dumbledore and Voldemort, because both have dark and light, and they both want power and to achieve something. So that's kind of what I went with here, but on a bigger scale, and of course outside of Earth.
Yeah.
So I know we touched on this the last time you were on, but who does your covers for you? Do you do them?
No, and it's been 3 artists so far in total. So for book 1 and 2 is Bristol Middleton, and then book 3 is James Lillick. And for book 4 and 5 is Michelle. I hope I didn't butcher her last name. Hermes or Hermes. She's from Mexico.
Yeah,
she's a wonderful artist, and I asked her to do a couple more book covers for me, meaning Black Rose Cocoon, and then I'm going to be doing a prequel trilogy in one book called Theranosita. So that book, when I get to it, will take the longest, and it'll probably be the biggest book I've written. Like right now, the biggest book I've written is Sahon, which should be around 600 pages. I've never written something that big before, and Theranosita will be around 800 pages because it'll be 3 books in one. That will be the most fun, not the most strenuous, just the most fun and take the longest, because it's 3 different stories. It's the fall of King Barrett, meaning the father of King Reeve and Esteve. And then I'll have my first ever animal war book called Darien War. And then the third book is The Traveler, which is basically what created the Big Bang. So someone from Earth came across that bridge, Sahon, and basically created a ripple effect and just started to untether one part of the bridge that caused Earth to change.
Interesting. Great fantasy.
We need to take our second break now. And when we come back, we'll have our book giveaway and tell everybody how to reach you and finish up talking about what we have to talk about. How about that?
Sounds good.
All right.
Now a word from our sponsors.
That's right.
First, there was Siren Song. Then Siren Song 2. Now comes The Siren Hunter, a continuing saga about Angie Holland and her never-ending battle with the mythological denizens that are not even supposed to exist. Is The Siren Hunter a conclusion to the undersea horror? Only the sirens know for sure.
The Siren Hunter, now available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites. Or contact this podcast. The trilogy is complete.
People Who Like to Read Want to Get Their Hands on Books by Becca Jones.
Becca Jones, the breakthrough author who tells it like it is. It takes courage to tell a story when it reveals dark secrets. Becca Jones delves deep into the hidden world of sexual abuse. She tells what happened and also tells how she survived.
Meant to Be is much more than just entertaining. Meant to Be gives you a point of reference, hope to cling to, and becomes a guide for survival if you have suffered the same thing. Meant to Be, Becca Jones. A must-have.
Meant to Be is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites.
Madison Jackson loved being a cop. A young girl is raped and murdered near Burnett Reservoir. Madison vows to get justice for the child. Madison travels to the heart of Mexican cartel country. She is kidnapped, tortured. Will Madison ever make it home? Justice by Kelly Marshall, only at Amazon.com.
Hi, welcome back. Before we get into the book giveaway, I just wanted to make clear that we were talking about your book about the female serial killer. I want to make sure people understood that we understand that rape is an act of violence and control and power. We didn't mean to intimate anything else. Right. So just to make that clear, because I know you know that.
Yeah, of course. And I don't want to give the wrong message.
Exactly. Exactly. Because that can be very triggering for people who have experienced it. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, let's go ahead with the book giveaway.
Yep.
And then we're going to tell everybody how to reach you. First of all, here it is. The first 3 people to email gressandre0@gmail.com will win an ebook copy of book 1 and 2. There you go. And here's the email so you can see it a little bit better there.
Go ahead. You can spell that one again.
That email is gressandre0@gmail.com.
And we'll leave that up for you so that you can have time to copy that down.
Yeah, it's on the ticker. So
it is on the ticker. And so while it's on the ticker, and then I'll bring it up once more, I want to let you know how you can get in touch with A.G. FLITCHER. His Facebook page is A.G. capital G dot capital F for FLITCHER, FLITCHER. His Twitter, and he's made it really easy for you to get in touch with him, is Twitter at AGFlitcher. His Instagram is at AGFlitcher. And his YouTube, and please subscribe to this. Go ahead, subscribe, like, and leave comments, is at AGFlitcher 1875. Okay. He also has a TikTok account, TikTok, AGFlitcher. And once again, I'm going to put up his email in large print so that you can easily see it, so that you can go ahead and have a book giveaway of the first 3 people to email him will win an ebook copy of book 1 and 2. Yes, which is Settleton's Secret and the Brothers Odyssey, which are Boone and Jock.
Yeah.
Well, when do book 4 and 5 come out?
Book 4 is available.
It's already
now.
It is available now. Yeah,
It's
already won its first award, and
Yay.
and it's now in the finals for a fantasy award as well for another one.
Good.
Book 5 will be out first week of April.
Oh, that's soon.
Yeah, so basically by the time this goes up, it will
It'll
be
be
the whole
out.
series.
They'll both be out.
Yeah.
And that will be the complete series then. And
Yeah.
then you're not doing any more on that series, and you're going to switch over to crime fiction.
Just for one book, yeah. And then I'm going to be doing also a few other books, but just to quickly mention, I'm going to be doing my first dystopian futuristic kind of book because of Halberton City, which is where Black Rose Cocoon takes place. So Red Widow Waltz, which is the title of my dystopian novel that will come out probably 2025 or later, because I'm focused on other things now. But anyway, I do have a rough premise for that I can share with you. So essentially, Red Widow Waltz is a widower's government program that is designed by a CD government facility to, I guess, prevent dangerous people from becoming dangerous. So throughout their whole adult lives, they've been followed by this CD government, and they see the potential of them being dangerous people and a threat to their society. So they created this semi-fantasy program where a VR headset, which has a journey / software program designed specifically for each person to kind of throw them in the fire of whatever grief they have and trauma that they have suppressed for so long that they have become potential threats to society. On the other side of the spectrum of that plot line, I'm including Boone as a secondary character because something happens to him at the very end of Book 5, Sahon, that becomes a dormant superpower that becomes active in this dystopian novel that makes him basically this CD government's secret weapon.
Oh.
So basically, I created a potential, how can I describe this? He's kind of like 11 from Stranger Things, but on a more magical side. So
okay.
Yeah, I wanted to be sure of this because I know people are going to kind of get triggered with book 4 and 5 because in book 4 there is some sensitive subject matter that may trigger some people, but please know I don't really show the sensitive subject matter. I just kind of insinuate what happens, and that way I'm not putting the readers through something that they don't want to see because of whatever it connects to in their life and their past. But it does give me as the storyteller an opportunity to show the strength trauma can give someone, especially a parent, to protect their child. That's the only hint I can give you. That will show you Boone's way of understanding parenthood. As a parent, I'll say that I can tell you, he does end up having children with Shammy, which is a big enough teaser for you to know about. So
Okay.
don't worry too much about knowing too much. Sahon is the most psychological and hardest book I ever wrote. So I really explore Boone and Jacques' psychology. I even separate them from each other and from Earth. That way, for half of the book, the first half, we get to explore with them their own psychology and understanding themselves, their own purpose, their own trauma, and how can they figure out what their purpose is, they are as a person. And of course, I marry a lot of themes in here. In fact, when I was starting to put together the information in terms of categories, when you look up on Amazon, I said fantasy, horror, and mashup for the overall feel, because my editor told me that it was very imaginative. So I really explored different tones and how disorienting out of body experiences can really change you, and that's what I did. So I really hope that everyone reads the series, because it's 4 years of work for me that I've been doing with a full-time job and staying on top of my social media and YouTube and in interviews. This I really value the work that I've done here, and I was terrified the last month or two about this series coming to an end, because I knew that it means once it's over, I'm moving on to other things, and part of me is like, once it's over, it's over. But the other part of me is saying, you know what, I did it. I completed a series that basically made me cry and scream, and was terrified of even putting the kind of stuff that I put in here. But I know the value of getting a visceral reaction from someone, because most books you read nowadays, especially from well-known authors or even just new books, they don't really dive into a character's psychology that much. They do in enough to get readers' attention, but not enough to make it memorable. It's just another book that's out there. So that was my goal with every book that I did here. It's not just to get better, but to make it memorable and to make someone feel something different with every book that I produce.
Wow.
Do you want to go into book 1, 2, and 3 real quickly? What you wanted people to feel like?
Yeah. Okay.
Or a little bit, without giving any spoilers. Or
yeah. Okay. So for book 1, which was of course focused on childhood trauma and learning how to lean on someone as a friend and as a lover, while also understanding that I can't really give too much of a big arc, because they're children. They're only 10. They're not gonna know everything about life at that age. That would be crazy. But it does introduce the concept of just because you're a boy doesn't mean you can't have feelings.
Good. Yeah.
And okay, Boone is more of your typical urban kid that, likes candy and plays board games and doesn't really focus on his emotions. Just knows that his home life is not ideal and he doesn't like it. Where Jacques, as a foster child, he's more focused on what he does have and the value of being studious and reading literature, whether sophisticated or not, and valuing his friendship with Boone, because he feels so isolated and more of a beautiful puppet to a rich family that are using this puppet to make themselves look more charitable and softer than they are. And I really summarize that by book 5. I show flashbacks of Jacques' infancy before he became a foster child that show the origin of how this rich British family came to have him in his family, and the darkness that was blocked out of Jacques' memory from infancy to 9 or 10. And he just, yeah. So book 2, I was exploring, teenhood development, of course, but because they go through time and space between book 1 and 2, they didn't really have a chance to explore step by step of going from childhood to teenhood. So they really had to learn from each other and their own mental development, how they act and how they perceive each other and themselves, and especially how they perceive, things like love, and how do they feel about that? Do they feel jealous of someone else's love, or their own questioning of who they are sexually speaking? And then book 3, where things become a bit more clear, is where they finally just give it a try of exploring their identity and sexuality, and being given their first time of segregation from each other, and really asking themselves questions. Because for book 1 and 2, they're not really doing that. Book 3, when they're like 15, 16, is where they are first given the opportunity to be in a somewhat, I wouldn't say stable, but familiar environment, because they're back on Earth. And yes, things are very difficult and different when they're back in Saddleton, but they are in what would be considered stable ground that gives them opportunity to cement themselves into a headspace where they can really explore who they are. Book 4, I know you said only up to book 3, but for book 4, that was an important book to me, really. I really wanted to explore their adulthood. How different would they be? How would they act as a parent or as a married couple? And also really explore LGBTQ characters. I have a transgendered male in there. And of course, I have Exantia, who was briefly introduced at the end of book 3, where we see that she married Jacques. And yes, this transgendered woman has the pronoun she, because she sees herself as a woman, not because she's ashamed of being transgendered. It's just how she feels.
That's how she identifies.
Yeah. And what I did to really show hatred and acceptance at the same time is that in Citrus, one of the mottos of the town is honesty. So when she was first hired as a FBI-ish detective, on paper she was supposed to check off the box that says I'm transgendered, but because she saw herself as a woman, she didn't do that. She just said I'm a woman, and then they fired her for dishonesty. But because they became desperate for professional detectives that have experience in special cases, they kind of kiboshed that rule and just let her on into her own department with Jacques, and they became like a duo of one special unit in this facility. And that's why it was so much fun to write this, because I got to put fantasy on the back burner until the very end of the story, because that way I focus on both families of Boone and Jacques and explore the real human side without it being heightened or distracted by fantasy.
Interesting.
Very good. Very good. Well, there's a lot to look forward to.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You got coming down the pike.
Mm-hmm.
And in these 2 new books that you just released.
Yes.
Do you have any more questions or anything?
Nope. I think we've come to the end of our hour. Actually, we've gone a little bit over, but that's okay.
That's all right. I want to thank you, AG. Wish you luck, and thank you so much for joining us again. You're a veteran now.
So we'll have to have you back when you start your crime series.
There you go.
We'll do.
I'm sure.
Well, the one and done you said it was going to be, but your crime book. Yeah. And then we'll see where you're going from there.
Yeah, lots to come in the next few years.
All right.
Awesome.
Okay, well, we're gonna
move you over to the side
there, and we'll be back with you in just a few minutes. Let's see, next week, April 19th, Ron Yates, multi-award winning author of historical fiction and action adventure novels. I can't speak. And this coming Wednesday, James Wopley, I said it right, episode 74 on Episode Rewind, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, right here where you're watching.
Not on Wednesday. It's going to be on Saturday.
Yeah, Episode Rewind. And then I guess that's it. Want to thank everybody, especially if you're listening from a foreign country or watching us there. We've got a lot of folks in countries that weren't represented before: Israel, Nigeria, Japan, Canada. Well, Canada, yeah.
Canada's always been represented.
Always. Qatar and Bangladesh, and the Philippines, India. Everybody.
Of course, U.S. is our main viewing audience, about 73%. But I did want to say, if just by looking at what our analytics have been in the countries that are representative there, if any of you are in the military, we appreciate your service.
Thank you for your service. Yeah.
We also thank you for tuning in to our podcast. We appreciate it greatly.
Right. And right now, stay tuned for the instructions on how to get over to the Voice of Indie podcast.
Yeah.
That'll be next.
Follow us right after this one.
Until next time.
That's all, folks.
Night.
Live every Wednesday, your Voice of Indie hosts Beam Weeks and Stephen Gees welcome authors, musicians, publishing industry pros, artists, and assorted creative guests for an exciting interactive hour. Call in during the show or post questions and comments on Twitter for responses in real time. Meet your favorite indie creators, learn inside tips, network, and promote your work. The link for each week's show is pinned on Twitter atop @VoiceOfIndie. And you can receive the link every Wednesday morning in your inbox by subscribing to our newsletter at freshinkgroup.com. Check out Voice of Indie every Wednesday on Blog Talk Radio and catch hundreds of episodes archived everywhere from our websites to our YouTube channel and Spotify.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-DB.com.
You've been listening to WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.